ago, the controversial anti-terror bill now in the hands of Malacanang.
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has signed an anti-terrorism bill into law.
Ganap ng batas itong isinusulong na bill.
What can we expect now that this anti-terrorism bill has been signed into law?
From the foregoing scenario, do the acts of A, B, C, and D constitute as acts of terrorism under RA 117479? The answer is in the affirmative. Republic Act Number 11479, or the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, is the law that punishes terrorism, repealing for that matter RA 9372, or the Human Security Act. Under Section 4 of the said law, terrorism is committed by any person who, within or outside the Philippines, regardless of the stages of execution, engages in the following acts. First is we have engages in acts intended to cause death or serious bodily injury to any person or endanger a person's life. Second, engages in acts intended to cause extensive damage or destruction to a government or public facility, public place, or private property. Third, engages in acts intended to cause extensive interference with damage or destruction to critical infrastructure. Fourth, we have develops, manufactures, possesses, acquires, transports, supplies, or uses weapons, explosives, or of biological, nuclear, radiological, or chemical weapons. And lastly, release of dangerous substances or causing fire, floods, or explosions. When the purpose of such act by its nature and context is to intimidate the general public or a segment thereof, create an atmosphere or spread a message of fear, to provoke or influence by intimidation the government or any international organization, or seriously destabilize or destroy the fundamental political, economic, or social structures of the country, or create a public emergency or seriously undermine public safety. Other punishable acts include the following: threats to commit terrorism under Section 5 thereof, conspiracy, proposal, and inciting to commit terrorism under Section 7, 8, and 9, participation in the planning, training, preparation, and facilitation in the commission of terrorism under Section 6, recruiting person to participate in, join, commit, or support terrorism or a terrorist individual or any terrorist organization, and membership in a terrorist organization under Section 10, and lastly, providing material support to terrorists under Section 12. Moreover, any person who, having knowledge of the commission of any of the crimes under Section 4, without having participated therein, takes part subsequent to its commission by profiting himself or herself or assisting the offender to profit by the effects of the crime, or by concealing or destroying the body of the crime or the effects or instruments thereof in order to prevent its discovery, or by harboring, concealing, or assisting in the escape of the principal or conspirator of the crime, shall be liable as an accessory. Unlike in the revised penal code, the anti-terror law does not exempt any person from liability as accessory regardless of relationship or affinity. Now going back to the first question posed, the acts of A, B, C, and D constitute acts of terrorism under RA 11479. Specifically, the acts of A, B, C, and D in causing death and serious bodily injuries to public commuters using weapons and explosives intimidated the general public and created widespread fear and panic among the masses, and are therefore acts of terrorism punishable under Section 4 of the said law.
From the given scenario, may E, the one who supplied the accused with weapons from abroad, be held liable for acts of terrorism under RA 11479. The Anti-Terrorism Act expressly provides for the extraterritorial application of its provisions. Specifically, under Section 49 of the law, the provisions of the Act apply to the following: 1. To a Filipino citizen or national who commits any of the acts defined and penalized under this law outside the territorial jurisdiction of the Philippines. 2. To individual persons who, although physically outside the territorial limits of the Philippines, engages in acts intended to cause death or serious bodily injury to any person inside the territorial limits of the Philippines, on board Philippine ship or Philippine airship, any embassy, consulate, or diplomatic premises belonging to or occupied by the Philippine government in an official capacity. And 3. To individual persons who, although physically outside the territorial limits of the Philippines, engages in acts intended to cause death or serious bodily injury against Philippine citizens or persons of Philippine descent, where their citizenship or ethnicity was a factor in the commission of the crime. And lastly, any individual who, although physically outside the territorial limits of the Philippines, commits said crimes directly against the Philippine government. Thus, from the problem posed, E, a Filipino citizen, by engaging in an act of terrorism, specifically that of manufacturing and supplying weapons and explosives in the Philippines, may be held liable under Section 4 of RA 11479 in relation to Section 49 of the law.
Considering the complexities of the crime of terrorism and the paramount of general welfare, does the law allow any means or methods to expedite the incarceration of individuals suspected of terrorism? Section 16 of this Act specifically provides, the law authorizes a law enforcement agent or military personnel may, upon a written order of the Court of Appeals, secretly wiretap, overhear and listen to, intercept, screen, read, survey, record, or collect, with the use of any mode, form, kind, or type of electronic, mechanical, or other equipment or device or technology now known or may hereafter be known to science, or with the use of any other suitable ways and means for the above purposes. Any private communications, conversation, discussions, data, information, messages in whatever form, kind, or nature, spoken or written words, between members of a judicially declared and outlawed terrorist organization as provided in Sections 26 of this Act, between members of a designated person as defined in Section 3, Paragraph E or of RA 10168, or any person charged with or suspected of committing any of the crimes defined and penalized under the provision of this Act, provided that surveillance, interception, and recording of communication between lawyers and clients, doctors and patients, journalists and their sources, and confidential business correspondence shall not be authorized. The law enforcement agent or military shall be likewise obligated to first file an ex parte application with the Court of Appeals for the issuance of an order to compel telecommunication service providers and internet service providers to provide all customer information and identification records as well as call and text data records, content, and other cellular or internet metadata of any person suspected of any of the crimes defined and penalized under the provision of this Act. And second, to furnish the Telecommunication Commission a copy of the said application. The National Telecommunication shall likewise be notified upon the issuance of the order for the purpose of ensuring immediate compliance.